Welcome to the Mosaic Life Podcast.
Life is an art. Every moment a picture painted in time. The color, texture, lighting, all context. The Mosaic Life vision is to cast a warm glow on your masterpiece, highlighting the struggle while showcasing the culmination of years of hard work.
Join us for guided meditations, interviews with authors and leaders, and engaging conversation as we explore the depths of our consciousness.
Welcome to the Mosaic Life. Happy to be here with you guys today with Trey. How's it going?
Are there more than two people in this room?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how to
How's
do an
it going?
intro.
No, that's perfect. That's beautiful, man.
Hello, listeners.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man.
Good. Thanks for coming back.
Yeah. I've been excited about this since we recorded last time.
This has been a very exciting and different process for me, and I am quite enjoying it. One thing that I'm getting used to is the social media element of it, of actually, doing serious social media. And I just had to do a stupid story on Instagram. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. I don't know.
It's more context than for entertainment.
It is.
Although seeing your face is entertaining.
I don't know if that's an insult or...
I don't know what it was either.
Okay.
It was just a joke. But you do social media for your business, don't you?
I do. Facebook mostly, just kind of it's not, it is kind of my voice, but at the same time, it's a business me. That's actually a very interesting distinction that I've never thought of in my mind, because I was thrilled to form this business because I can do things the way that I want to. And I built it, on the premise of passion and giving me the available time and resources to pursue my other passions outside of work. So it is my voice, but it isn't. So that's interesting. So, yeah.
Well, I was just listening to something. It might be The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, an incredible book for anyone looking to
What was it called?
The Big Leap.
The Big Leap. Okay.
Yeah. Seriously, it was recommended by a gentleman in my men's group, and it's been transformational. Transforming. I don't know, one of those words. But the point being is he's speaking about personas in there, and the distinction that comes up is your persona on social media. Maybe you don't categorize it as you, although everything else that is you is just another persona. Does that make sense?
It does. Yes, it does make sense.
And just because you're attuned to a certain persona, and this is for me too, when I'm posting for life or for business, but I want to use a more heartfelt tone. It doesn't feel like my persona that I've been my whole life, but it's just a voice that's coming out of me that is also acceptable.
That makes beautiful sense. It really does. And I'm trying to digest
Otherwise, you're attaching yourself to another persona and saying, oh, that one's me, so I can't be this persona. But it's all persona, every one of it, every bit of it. Like when you are mad, it's a persona that you've built up of how to be mad. If you're happy, it's a persona. Right.
And regardless, it's a piece of you, no matter how you portray it. You can, whether it's your business, whether it's podcast, personal network, it is a piece that is coming off of you.
Yeah. So social media, persona, whatever.
One of our persona is on Instagram at One Mosaic Life. That's ONEMOSAIC Life. We're starting to find some friends on there, which is exciting. So you should be our friend.
Yeah. We're already pumping out content. Well, this is interesting. I was going to say, but not posting podcasts, but by the time they listen to this, we will have posted podcasts.
Right. It's funny how that works. I know. It's not live. We're not live.
We're not live. We're there now.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's good. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this just as we kind of like slide into a groove with the social media, with getting together and setting up the structure of recording, and then just expanding our own relationship as we work to do something challenging together.
And that is an interesting element. You think that we get into this room as either business partners or friends and sit down and talk for a couple hours, but a piece of this is we are growing ourselves as as friends, as brothers, as whatever you want to call it. So it is expanding our relationship because we are learning more about each other and becoming more vulnerable, not only with ourselves, but with each other and, with the people who listen to us too.
Yeah. But anyways, as far as business goes, let's get back to that.
Sure.
The website is
onemosaic.life. Right now, that'll take you to our podcast page. I hope to have a website available for us sometime in the near future, where Ernie can blog and rant. And
I don't rant about anything.
that's good. Good.
Strictly business. Now, will we be streaming the podcast on Google Play, on
Yes.
iTunes?
So, as I like to say, this podcast will be available wherever podcasts are sold. It's a bad joke from somewhere else.
Sounds professional.
Yeah, I know. iTunes or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, all the above.
Cool.
Yeah. Stitcher. And if you want to get a hold of us outside of Instagram, our email address is onemosaiclife@gmail.com. We are nothing if not consistent. Yeah.
I'm sinking into that one. I'll be consistent.
That's what I'm at. That's all I ask for, man. That's all I ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
So, introduce yourself, Ernie.
My name is Ernie, and what am I supposed to say that I haven't said already?
Well, I mean, we're constantly changing. I think that's the idea behind, or at least one of the many ideas behind this podcast, is that we're not getting together exactly consistently here. We're doing it as often as we can. So we are a different person now than we were 2 or 3 weeks ago, if not minutely. Maybe there's something that has been transformative in your life. So who are you right now?
Yeah, well, I think we'll dive into this a bit when we get into the conversation. We're poised to do a conversation on habits and commitment and things like that. And so that's where I've been. I have this whiteboard, and I use different segments of my life, and then I have the to-do tasks, and then each day I feel into what I want to do, or what feels right to get done, what's most important. And one of the columns is for me, then there's one for family, there's one for the podcast, whatever. And for me, right now, it says honoring structure. There's a rebellious nature within myself where I set up a structure in my life or a habit that I'm going to do, and then there's this rebellious / bratty type persona.
I know that person.
Slides into play.
Yeah,
and it's like, fuck your structure. I almost didn't want to say it. I was like, are we allowed to?
We can cuss.
We are.
We're not
that's basically what's happening. It's like this part of me that I remember from, well, of course, childhood, but I see it most from my early 20s. I was super rebellious.
Yep.
Screw what you say about what I'm supposed to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And so that kind of pops up when I put a structure into my life.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just learning to relax in the face of that and maintain a structure. That's been my past 2 weeks.
That rebellious little asshole, we'll call him. Again, I'm sure we'll delve into it, but when he, and I'm going to personify him, when he rears his ugly head, how I know that I've moved to a better position in life is that even when I let him get the best of me, the following day or days, I feel. And I feel guilty in the sense that I know that I did something that hinders my progress forward. I may have had fun, but at what expense? And I'm not saying don't have fun, but sometimes, too much fun is a thing.
Sometimes it's not fun either, though. Sometimes he rears his head and it's not fun.
Absolutely. I agree.
And so you're saying the days following.
Yeah. Whether it's, a literal hangover or a metaphorical
Totally.
one. Yeah.
Totally.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Actually, I don't know if it was irrelevant of time. It was funny. I was shopping a week or so ago, and I noticed myself. So the rebellious asshole showed up, and then there was the next day, right? I'm in this hangover, and I'm sad about it, and doing all the sadness persona stuff, and I just realized I was extending, although I wasn't being the rebellious asshole, I was being more of there was like this parent aspect, like,
Yeah.
how could you?
I get it.
That's not necessarily parenting, but like a belittling
It's, I mean,
voice.
it's a parent figure in your mind, because that's
Authority
how
of some sort.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I realized, holy cow, like what's running my life right now is this voice of badgering myself for messing up. And I could just kind of let that go and be happy instead. Like, okay, I messed up. I forgive myself. Now I can go back into my structure.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think it's a fine line, because having that accountability, that is what we're calling the hangover. It's the sense of accountability that you would let yourself down, or you let the badgering little asshole get the better of you. It's that accountability that you have to. It speaks wonders of yourself if not only you can feel a sense of commitment to that accountability, but also that you can, in essence, jump back up on the horse and pick up where you left off. And I think that really sets a lot of people apart. I made a post about this on Instagram. I hate talking like that, but that's I've
Get used to it, man.
Right, I know.
It's good. It's good. What we're doing is good.
I
Totally.
I agree. But I made a post exactly about this. I sometimes when we get into habit formation, we get into these thought patterns where if we don't. I really think the New Year's resolution is a perfect example. Everybody will create these great goals for themselves, whether it's to lose 15 pounds or eat healthier, but we use that structure in a way that says, if we don't stick to this commitment, then we've failed. And I think if we don't let ourselves fail, and also are afraid of picking back up because of the potential of failing again, then if you can get back on that horse, if you can pick up that habit where you left off, you are going to be so many strides ahead of people who just give up after one swing and a miss. I know there's a very, very roundabout way of saying that. I was trying to structure my thoughts.
No, totally. If that voice comes in, right, you do something that maybe you wanted to do and it foils the plan or messes up your commitment, or you do something you didn't want to do and somehow the plan falls apart, this commitment, this habit. For me, and I'm assuming, I guess, that people encounter this as you just have reflected it, that voice comes in now criticizing yourself. I'm not good enough. I can't keep a habit. Like, that's a very powerful thought. I can't keep a habit just
Absolutely.
because I messed up one time. I didn't meditate for 10 minutes on Tuesday. I can't keep a habit. Therefore, I'm not going to meditate ever again this week.
Right.
And that you don't have to go through that process. Like, we surely we get caught up in these voices, these personas, these ways that we're programmed. But we also have other choices.
Yes, I agree with you completely. And to kind of drive that point home a little bit further, we live in a society where it's a magical and incentivizing, and everything is gamified, and you can get streaks using your habit trackers and your Fitbits and whatnot, and that's a great incentive tool. But to your point, when that streak breaks, when you miss one day of meditation and you feel like those 200 days prior are now worthless, that is where we reach dangerous territory. Mm-hmm. Because instead of saying, oh, I messed up one day, all my progress is lost, you need to say, hey, skip today, let's just move on and move forward. I'm sure there's not a direct correlation, but even taking days off from working out and just letting your body heal, letting your mind relax, giving yourself an opportunity to learn and grow and realize why missing that day or why you don't want to do it, why you don't want to miss that day again is so important to you. That's just a way for you to grow and move on. So that's where I see that fine line of between gamification and, a healthy way of maintaining habits. You just have to make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons.
Totally. Yeah. What comes to mind as you say that is, why are you doing it? That's the perfect place to go there, because if you're doing it to meditate for 365 days in a row, then you've surely failed. You're really setting yourself up for failure there.
Agreed.
Great. Set yourself up for that extreme goal and do it. What happens if you mess up one day? Day 250, you didn't meditate. Now you've lost everything. No. But why did you start meditating? I imagine it wasn't to do 365 days. It was to get the effect of what 365 days would do. And being more clear on why you're doing it. Okay, I'm doing meditation so that I can be more present with my family, but you set the structure up to like just really constrict that. There's no family in there, right? There's no presence in there. You're simply saying that if I don't hit this metric, I'm not good enough, and then it's all crashing down. This is just one example. There are so many ways that habits fall apart and we screw ourselves over for it.
Absolutely.
And fall off the horse.
And speaking of motivations behind meditation specifically, Ernie and I had a great meeting a couple hours ago, and this is not something I want to delve into this episode, but the question came up.
You're doing it.
Well, I want to delve into one part of it. The question came up as to why you specifically started meditating, and you told me, and you're welcome to share it here if you want to. But then I started thinking about why I started meditating, and they were wholly different reasons. I personally, I am overstating this because I've heard somebody state it this way, but it's a body orgasm for me. It's this sense of pleasure that I get for 20 or 30 minutes that there's nothing else that I can do to get that peace in my body and that feeling. And it's in a way, it is chasing a high, but it's one that with practice and consistency, I can hit time after time. And so I do it for pleasure and relaxation and for mindfulness and for self-awareness. But when you discuss, the motivation for meditating, you are absolutely right. There are a million different reasons you can do it.
Yeah. And I don't know what the end result is for that habit. Like what is the number one, like at the root of all of it? Is it to feel a certain energy? Is it to think less? Is it to be more present? I just know that all those things happen.
They do.
When you do it. Habitually. Like if you're listening to this and you haven't meditated for 4 days in a row in your life, just do that one time and you'll notice what happens. And that was what it was for me, because I consistently fall off the horse with things. And setting up structures, of course, to be more consistent is always the game for me. But after I did my first 4 or 5 days in a row of meditation, I there was no way that I would never not get back on that horse. And so I would encourage anybody to give that a shot.
Agreed. And this is a very weird analogy, but I'm going to use it because it popped into my head. As they say, and I'll admit, as I experienced, the first time, I'm not a habitual smoker, but the first time I ever smoked weed, as they say, you don't get high your first time. And it's as your body, I guess, acclimates to the THC. I don't know. Again, I'm not a drug person, but it's a very similar sense for anybody who can draw those parallels as to the first time. It's hard to maintain a clear. I mean, it's always it's always a struggle. It's always a competition between your mind and your awareness to maintain that level headedness and that clear mind. But as you practice more and more, it creates a stronger sense of self and of I guess awareness in your own mind as to what am I trying to say? Help me out here.
Well, the one thing that comes up is the word competition feels a little off for me. A competition, you said, between your mind and your awareness, I think.
Yeah.
I think, in my opinion, I believe that meditation is, and this might be the wrong word as well, but a coalescing, this combination effect of your mind and your awareness.
Okay.
Of your body, your mind, and your awareness, rather than, because they're competing.
You're right.
They're competing.
Yeah.
Right? You're in pain. You feel that place of pain on your finger where you just got a paper cut, and it's there, and then your mind's competing to rationalize what to do, and then your awareness is competing, whatever. I'm just using a terrible example. But with meditation, you are allowing space for all of those things at one time and expanding your awareness onto your body, your mind. It expands your focus, your presence, your ability to listen, your ability to speak. So that's a great habit.
It really is. And I see no better place than to kind of delve into, I guess, the meat of what we aim to talk about today it's habit formation and then commitment and recommitment, because it's not something that you can simply say overnight, I'm going to become an expert meditator, an expert runner, or I'm going to lose 10 pounds. It's the formation is, I guess, the setting yourself up for success is the most important thing you can do, and so many elements go into that. And so how do you, since we're speaking about meditation, how do you personally set yourself up to enable yourself to meditate daily?
So when I hear some people talk about habits, I hear this idea that you do something for 30 days and then it's just a natural reflex of your body to do it, to whatever that thing is. And I don't know how true that is, because no matter how much I do something, I still at times find competing reasons not to do it. It's not just a natural reflex. So my first thought is, for you, is there something that you've implemented into your life that there's no discussion around anymore?
That's a really great question. Meditation is not one of those things, unfortunately. At this point in time, I'm probably meditating 4 or 5 days a week, and always, missing a few. So it is certainly something that I want to become automatic in relation to something that just automatically happens in my life in regard to in regard to habits. Intermittent fasting. I typically don't eat between 10 p.m. and noon. That's my body has gotten to a place where I don't get hungry until noon. That is an automatic for me. I don't know if I would call this one automatic per se. It's just something that I have the willpower to do. Every time I get in the shower, I crank it all the way to cold and turn it on, then take a nice cold shower every day.
Totally.
Yeah. So those, I guess, are things that are automatic for me. Setting myself up for success for meditation, I don't know how much more I can do. Because I am self-employed, I have the ability to meditate essentially when and where I want to. It's just, I guess, the things that I would have to minimize in my life are, to minimize screen time in the morning, minimize or avoid checking emails, and also, of course, avoid scheduling meetings first thing. And that is probably one point where I struggle the most, being a little bit more strong-armed and when I book those meetings.
Can we jump back to the
Yes.
things that you do
Yes.
that are habitual?
Absolutely.
I mean, if we're using the term
Yes.
habitual in
Yeah.
the sense of automatic decisions.
Commitments, yeah.
When you think of intermittent fasting, at what point did that become habitual?
Oh, let's see. I mean, it's been several years, and I'm trying to think back. I've never struggled with weight. Right now I bounce between 165 and 170. The highest I've ever been is probably 188. But when I get to that point, I just don't feel good with myself. I can see pictures. My face gets fat, and I don't feel comfortable sitting down. I'm not a comfortable person. And so when I came to find, and it was essentially at the same time, how truly awful sugar is for you, and how skipping breakfast, essentially, even though it has been marketed as the most important meal of the day, can help me stay in a fasted state longer, and what effects it has on my body. It was a matter of maybe 2 or 3 weeks before those hunger pangs started going away, and I actually had more energy in the morning, and I realized I could run 5 or 10 miles without having eaten for the last 12 hours, and how the effect of food does not hold the power that it once used to over me.
At what point did it lose that texture? Was it with the pain of, I use the word pain loosely, of seeing pictures and knowing that if you live in a certain way that your face will get chubbier, you'll feel uncomfortable, your pants won't fit, you'll feel groggy, whatever those things might be? Or was it around the comfort or the ease that was, and maybe it was both, but there's also that ease that you mentioned of not eating and how you feel when you're not eating in the morning, and you mentioned other elements. Do you think it was one or the other?
It's, if I'm understanding the question correctly, it was an array of things. I mean, you do one thing and you have to realize that it has a ripple effect outward on essentially all elements of your life. Everything is so interconnected. And so when I consistently maintained the weight that I wanted to, when I consistently had energy levels going into lunchtime that I wanted to, when it became seamless or simple for me to be the type of, I guess, fit, or be in the type of fitness that I wanted to. It was all of those things tied into one that happened, I guess, again, over a matter of weeks and months, that it was just, it not only became habitual, it just became automatic.
There was no thought to it.
No.
Yeah, so it's, the word of the day can be coalescing. So it was a coalescing of multiple areas of your life.
Yes.
And then it just, boom, it was locked into place.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
And do you feel the same thing in terms of, what was the other habit you said it was?
Cold showers.
Cold showers.
Yeah.
You feel the same with that?
That's probably not to the same extent. When I first learned about I tend to get most of my, and I use this word sarcastically because I don't truly believe it. Where I tend to get most of my crazy habits from are from podcasters out in Silicon Valley and people who are, on the forefront of biohacking and, self-improvement and betterment. That's where I learned about the cold shower or cold therapy. And the first notion that I got of that was that when you are just submersed in cold, you kind of get this giddy feeling. And I do remember specifically the first few times that I took a cold shower with the absence of any sort of hot water, I did get that giddy feeling. I was happy. I felt good. I think since then it's kind of transformed itself. Not necessarily, I don't do it for pleasure. I don't do it to wake me up. I do it because I try to be comfortable in uncomfortable situations, and I could be doing more for that. But that is the driving factor behind the cold showers.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it almost feels like doing that would wake yourself up to the identity that I seek out comfort in discomfort.
Yes.
Instantly.
Yes.
In the morning. So it sounds like a great habit.
So going back, I do say this genuinely. I look up to you in the sense of how well, not only how well you meditate, but how even after hearing your guided meditations, how thoughtful and how well put together they are. And so what has driven your habit formation behind that, and what sets you up for success daily to make sure that is something that is part of your day?
So for me, it feels like there's always a susceptibility to some outside desire. And in order for me to hold quality presence in the world, it starts the instant that I wake up. And in waking up, funny enough, it starts the night before. So for me, the way that I wake up starts from the way that I plan to wake up. So there's an element of planning to that. And this comes in a variety of fashions. It could be me sitting and writing a list of things that I'll do with an exact time measurement of 15 minutes, or it could be me laying in bed and envisioning myself, my alarm going off at 4:50 or whatever, and jumping out of bed with excitement. So there are different elements that I use, that I play with. But it starts with the night before, sitting down and cultivating, choosing what I will be doing in the morning, choosing how I will feel in the morning. And then following through with that, it's like this cascading effect. I wake up, I'm in integrity with what I decided to do. And like with the cold showers, it sets me in place with an identity of I do what I say, I feel good, and I enjoy myself. I find time to take care of myself, and then that moves out into I find time to take care of my family, which moves out I find time to take care of my clients or my business or whatever it might be. So it in this moment in my life, it feels like the instant that I wake up and how I plan to do that.
Well, yeah, I love what you just said, and it actually, as you said it harkens back to the time when you and I originally met a couple years ago, when habits, the concept of structuring one's day and habit formation was as foreign to me as another language. I remember how I felt when I started to discover. It really goes back to podcasting, and I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but I set myself up, and I was working full-time somewhere else, so I would wake up an extra hour early. I would, first thing I would do, if I recall correctly, was listen to a motivational speech on Spotify, 4 or 5 minutes. Then I would meditate for 20 minutes, and then I would take a cold shower. And for the first time ever, I remember going to bed excited to wake up. And I don't want to say I've lost that feeling. It's just evolved. But it certainly got me on the track to where I am now. And that was it, having that intention behind getting up and feeling good about your day as opposed to dreading it. It makes all the difference. And also on top of that, I was journaling quite a bit of the time. That's when I was deep into bullet journaling. So taking the night before and structuring your forthcoming day and reflecting on the day you had previously, it really was life-changing.
Yeah, the journaling part is definitely solid with me too. Sitting down, what went well today, it offers me a reminder that, my day was jam-packed with amazing things, and then what could have been better. I can see elements that I could have worked on. I can work on going forward. It pushes all of the tangled web of what has happened and what I'm worried about and what I'm grateful about. It pushes it all out, and it definitely makes room for better awareness and understanding. So I found that to be a great structure for me too, especially when I spoke about evenings and how they affect my morning.
That's great. And what other, or are there any other habits in your daily life that are just automatic at this point in time, or ones that you're working on and now to build into that autonomy?
So I want to be clear. I don't feel like any of my habits are automatic.
Okay.
I feel that my work is to be relaxed, and then my choices each day are fine. That's
a great answer.
Yeah, maybe.
Very thoughtful.
As I say it, I'm thinking maybe there's somebody out there that's going to be like, here, I'm going to come help you form habits.
No, I mean,
but I don't necessarily think that's the case. Honoring structure, right? I said that's an important aspect for me right now. Honoring structure and not rebelling against structure.
it's a very self-aware way of looking at it. It really is.
Really?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, if the things that I see you do, I just assume are automatic. I do, and that's great, from an outward perspective. But internally, knowing that you are essentially powerless to that greedy little asshole in the back of your mind, and knowing that you have to continually work to enforce those barricades to keep it out, that only strengthens those habits even more. So it's a very positive and I think necessary way of looking at that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to use the word force. I again want to reiterate, relax, because I have no ambition to create a life or build a life that I had to force into place.
Good.
So relaxing into those walls that I'm putting in, like when the greedy little asshole shows up, and
That's a great name.
I love it. That's him, dude. Like it's totally. And,
It is.
And there's a thing called shadow work. I've done this a couple times now in my work with John Wineland and the Embodied Men's Leadership Training. And these shadows are little personas that show up that just like to send your world into upheaval. And the practice of shadow work, I'm no professional, but what you do is you name it and you give it a really strong persona. You envision it. Like, would this greedy little asshole be like a 4-foot tall gremlin with like a gold chain around his neck and his middle finger in the air? Or would he be this giant like ogre? Or would he be a businessman in this suit? I don't know. Then you name it and then you embody it. And through this practice, you make friends with these shadows that show up to just tear your life apart. These personas that you've somehow taken on over the course of your life. And so when you say greedy little asshole, that's what comes up for me. It's a shadow that I can actually befriend, become fully aware of, and use to my benefit. When he comes around, I can use him as a signal of awareness or however else it might show up. But greedy little asshole definitely nails it. He comes around a lot. Maybe not greedy, unless greedy being...
I mean, he's greedy for your time. At least that's what happens. And that's how I envision it.
Yeah. Cool.
Because I mean, I hope it doesn't sound trite, but time is truly the singular resource which we cannot renew. We cannot get any of it back, which is why I go back to how much we appreciate your time and you spending it with us, and how much we want to respect that. Yes, the listener.
You.
Absolutely. And so that's where the greedy little asshole wants your time. And as anecdotally, like this weekend, I went to a friend's bachelor party, drank way too much, spent way too much money. And, it's just one of those things where I've got a 2-day physical and mental hangover. The physical part of me, Sunday, I wanted to die every time I bent over or made any sudden movements. And that obviously takes time away from my Sunday. And then I look at, I mean, it's not like I went broke, but it's, that money that I spent at the bars and spending too much money on a Lyft ride home, that, could easily have gone to other pursuits.
Yeah.
But it is.
Yeah, he was like, let's get another drink. Come on, this is
Absolutely.
great. Let's keep going. All right, you feel good. You're going to feel better if 100%. You keep going.
100%.
Yeah.
And do you think I meditated on Sunday? Absolutely not.
Yes.
No, I didn't. I didn't meditate on Sunday. I may or may not have mentioned this. I have built a habit around reading 50 pages a day. I take pride in my book collection. I know that sounds weird. Some people love their Pokemon collection. I love my books, and half of them I haven't read. And so I said, okay, what can I do to get through those? And so I've started reading 50 pages a day. And this weekend I lost out on 100 pages.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And so to kind of backtrack it, once that greedy little asshole shows up, rather than forcing through him, which I think is a popular way to do it for some people, or at least it's a popular way to market habit formation, like forcing your way through it. I believe that you can relax into it, And there are many ways to do it. I won't get into it now, or maybe I could.
Go for it, man. I mean, the way I see it is, there has to be a compromise, because it's not, I don't want to be the type of person where I, turn down the opportunity to celebrate with a friend who's getting married. That is, I guess, unfair to me, to him, and it's disingenuous to myself as well. And so there has to be compromise. And whether or not that's being as structured as saying, okay, I'm going to have one drink per hour for 3 hours and I'm going to go home. That's not personally who I am, but being a little bit more mindful from the outset, I think, is a way to compromise. I don't know. How do you?
I mean, with drinking, it's hard to see, or at least in this moment, I can't see a way, because the more you drink, the less you're mindful, the less you're in your body, and
exactly,
and the easier it is to get carried away. But the earlier, this is why shadow work can be so powerful for people. At least for me, what I've seen. When I make friends with the greedy little asshole, and I've named him, and he's now, I see him, I notice the tone changing when he's showing up, so to speak. Like, this sounds kind of like mental, but like I notice the change in my body. I notice the change in my thought processes, the feeling in my body. And for me, my belief for habit formation is an awareness around those transitions. Like, how quickly can I notice that I'm slipping into that place, and then backing up and slowing down, relaxing, whatever it is for each person to come back to center, and making a decision from there. It's once we've let the greedy asshole all the way in and he's just taken over, then we're like, oh my God, how do I get out of this? I need to eat another donut, or I need to watch another episode of this show on Netflix. So that could be a whole conversation within itself, but noticing that ahead of time. So if I'm drinking, either setting up the structure early and following that, or with anything, just noticing when my tone of being is changing to one of those destructive tones that I know I don't want.
Yeah, I really like that. I like the idea of putting a face to this goblin or gremlin, or I know that's how you pictured him initially, and that's that
I just made it up in this
moment. That works, but I think more realistically, at least for me, it can be a mirrored image, because it's not like what is kind of enticing you to do something that you wouldn't necessarily want to do is something foreign. It's it is within you, because otherwise you wouldn't be doing it unless there's something going on mentally. I guess I first saw him as a mirrored image, and I don't know. I hope that doesn't sound narcissistic. I feel like it's more of a reflection on who I am, or at least who I used to be, or who is trying to come out. Does that make any sense at all?
Maybe a little more clarity would be. What do you mean by mirrored image? So you don't see a gremlin, you see Trey.
I see Trey. Gotcha. I see another side of me that's saying, "Hey, listen, we can have one more drink, or we can watch one more episode." And it's a rationalizing. I guess it is the other side of me that's trying to rationalize poor decisions.
Sure.
And so to me, it's not some evil little shrew. It is just another side of me.
So would he be wearing different clothing? Would he be standing different? Would his tone of voice be different? I imagine there are elements that might be different than Trey, that decides to get up and read a book and meditate and take a cold shower and feel good.
It's a good question.
You know what I mean?
Like, I do know what you mean. I do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Altogether.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. There's no room for debate here, because I'm not as knowledgeable on this shadow work as I could be. But I like the idea of distinguishing it as a separate being.
Yes.
In some way as to help that awareness.
I agree completely. Yeah. I really do. And that's something that I'm going to reflect upon after this, because it is certainly an interesting thought experiment. And I guess I struggle to remember what we've talked about previously, but one of the habits that I formed a few years ago was the habit of, I learned this from Tim Ferriss. When I complain or get angry irrationally or lash out in a way that is not becoming to me, I would be wearing I think they're silicone bracelets, and then I would take it off, switch hands, switch wrists. And every time I did something that made me feel guilty as an individual, I would switch wrists. And so the goal was to go 30 days without having to switch wrists. And initially, when I very first started doing that, I felt like I had all this pent up rage and like my mind was going to explode. And having the conversation we just had, to me, it's that shadow person trying to like break its way out from the inside. And I guess as I became more disciplined in that practice, I was doing what you said. I was making friends with it. I was asking myself, okay, is it rational for me to get upset? And I know I always use this example. Is it rational for me to get upset when that person cuts me off? Maybe they've got something else going on in their life. That sort of thing. So I completely understand the concept that you're bringing to the table here. And it's just me connecting the dots in my mind.
Yeah, whatever it takes to bring awareness to the parts of us that aren't serving us, and then recommitting to the decisions that we made to be a certain type of person, to do a certain thing, whatever it takes to have the awareness and recommit is the only thing necessary. Right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's it. Because as soon as you realize that I'm doing something I previously told myself I did not want to do for X reasons or whatever, and then have a process to recommit to that, it doesn't matter what it is.
And like so many things, it goes back to mindfulness and meditation. And you had asked me a week or an episode or two ago how I remain present during conversation, which is always something that I try to work toward, and not thinking about how I'm going to respond, but generally listen to the person. And that's was a parallel in my mind to how I meditate and, how I remained focused. And when I lose focus, how I get back to it is to trigger in my mind. And so to your point, when the shadow person is peeking, I guess its head out, it's a trigger that has been developed to say, okay, listen, I need to take a step back and reanalyze the situation that I'm in, or the feelings that are starting to arise within myself.
Yeah. And I imagine that practice of deliberately switching wrists every time that person, in this moment that you're speaking of, complaining, that came out, you switched wrists, that built the awareness around it.
Absolutely.
The trigger point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're coming up on an hour here, but I did want to, we touched on this in the beginning, and I really want to drive the point home. When it comes to habit formation and committing to habits, we're all none of us are infallible. We are going to slip up, and maybe it's because we're just having a lazy day or a bad day, or an emergency comes about and you don't have the time to sit down for 20 minutes and practice mindfulness. Whatever it is, things are going to come up, and it's how we move forward the next day and the day after that really puts us on pace to be so far ahead of the rest of people who just give up after that time. So because you say nothing is automatic, that to me means that sometimes things happen. Sometimes you don't get a meditation in, or sometimes that shadow person creeps out into your life. So how do you personally get back on track? What are your security measures? What is the emergency plan for that?
The two things that come to mind is putting something of value on the table. So the two things being social value and monetary money value. So being a part of a group or being in working with a person, a friend, or a coach, or maybe it's a counselor, and being accountable to them, having that social value there of this is what I'm going to have to bring back if I don't do X, or that's basically it. Like having that structure built. I'm going to report to these men in my men's group every month or every week that I did or didn't do these things. That's helpful. Having
Accountability,
yeah, that social value on the table, and then also money. I've invested a lot of money into my own growth, and what I know is when I'm ready for a strong change and I commit money to it, in the form of being in a program or working with a coach or a personal trainer, that I've put a lot of value into something, and when it comes a month later or 2 months later, that I don't feel like doing it, I'm still very likely to show up because I just spent X amount of money on this thing, and then I show up to that thing and it also builds me, so it brings me back from that place. So putting something of value on the table. And I know I mentioned this men's group a lot, but it's the program by which I'm structuring my life right now. These men, the teacher, and one of the things in that group that we've used and to some degree is putting money on the table if I don't do something.
Literally speaking. So if I don't do this, I will give X amount of money to this charity that I hate, or not a charity that I hate. I'd imagine that would be the case. Maybe it's like a political movement that I'm not a fan of, or a charity that I love. Like that doesn't matter. But like I'm putting a lot of money that I would feel uncomfortable with on the table, and if I don't do it, I'm going to spend that. And dude, that's powerful. It is.
It's powerful, especially like we didn't do this in the group, but one of the men mentioned it. Signed checks, signed and
blank check.
Blank checks. Yes, thank you. Physically writing these checks and putting them in a jar, and you don't have it. So if you don't do it, somebody else is cashing that check to whatever foundation or person that you don't want it to go to. It's funny, like it's a funny idea, but if you've ever done it, you'll see that there's a lot more willpower in you than you give yourself credit for.
Agreed.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So placing value at hand, on the table.
That's a wonderful. It's a wonderful way of putting that, because what I have noticed is that if you don't have, if there's no value, if there's no willingness to change who you are or your habits, then you can't. Nobody can force anybody else to change. You really have to put value on either your happiness or your health or your mental well-being prior to building strong habits. And if you don't see that value, if you don't value yourself high enough, then there's no chance you're going to withhold that structure. And
totally. Until you see it. For sure. And I think I answered the wrong question. Your question was more, how do you jump on the horse, back on the horse? This is how to keep myself from falling off the horse. I do have, for me, an important aspect of getting back on the horse. And I mentioned awareness and then a way to recommit. And this comes up most as a parent, because there are so many times, like it could be on a daily basis sometimes that I do something that I feel terrible about, whether it's speaking in a certain way or acting in a certain way in front of my kids. There's so many ways you can mess up as a parent, and the way that I've found, because so let me say it like this: in the past, and sometimes if I get too wrapped up, it'll go from making a mistake and then that voice of badgering myself for it, like you don't deserve to be happy because you're a shitty parent and you mess up all the time. Like that voice can come in for me, and then I found most recently that the way I don't have to listen to that voice, and the way for me to alleviate that and come back into being who I choose to be as a dad is forgiveness. this is total, like, if I would have heard myself saying this a year and a half, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it would just sound like one of those, like, la-di-da, things. But there's power in this. And for instance, I one day I was trying to get my daughter to brush her teeth, and I mean, instantly, right there, as I say that, I was trying to get her to do something. I was trying to control the situation.
Yeah.
First mistake. So anyways, it started getting heated, and I was getting hot, and my tone was changing, and she was getting louder, matching me. And she's like 3 years old, and because I'm bigger than her, I picked her up off her stool, and I went in and I sat her down on her bed more forcefully than I could have. I didn't hurt her, but I definitely wasn't nice, and it wasn't the right way to handle the situation. And I shut her door, and I said, I'll be back in 5 minutes. And like, that's the only thing I could do to get away from the situation,
right,
because I had the awareness that something was going wrong, and maybe I handled it incorrectly. But what happened is I left her room. I walked outside literally outside of my house. So to get space, I reconnected to breathing, which I'm not doing now. And then I forgave myself. Okay. I forgive myself for not handling it the right way that I think is the right way, or not having the awareness to calm myself down and talk her through it. Forgive myself for this, forgive myself for that, whatever's coming up. I forgive her for not brushing her teeth, for escalating as I escalated.
Sure.
And then I recommitted to being a dad who's loving, caring, generous, patient. And in a matter of 45 seconds, I made the mistake. I walked outside. I connected to my body. I forgave myself. I recommitted, and I walked back in there. And when you do this, when you connect to yourself, when you connect to the moment, there's not a bad bone in another person. When you connect to love, connect to the moment. And I walked back in the room, I opened the door, and the whole energy was different. She was different. And I apologized, and we talked about it. And then we went right into the bathroom and immediately brushed her teeth. It was nothing. And so I think this is important, not only for ourselves, but also to forgive other people. It's an important practice to just get past whatever resistance is happening in a moment.
That was extremely well put.
Thank you.
Yeah. I genuinely don't have anything to add to that.
Not that you need to. The point I guess I'm looking to make is there's not a certain amount of time that you have to be in pain because you made a mistake before you can go back to being whoever you wanted to be. Just do it. It's so easy to say.
It's permission and it's forgiveness.
Yeah.
Grant yourself
permission.
those.
That's huge.
Grant yourself those.
Yeah.
I truly couldn't see a better place to wrap it up.
Sure.
I thought that was. Thank you for that. I've got chills,
Thanks,
man. That was
thank
really
you.
Good. Yeah.
I say thank you, but like I need to have that as validation or something. But
it's fine. No,
but I do appreciate that I can share what actually matters to me.
Absolutely.
In a way that can help, and I hope that's what this entire podcast becomes.
And I hope to see or hear. You say as a creator that if you can affect one person's life, or you can put one smile on one face, then it's become success. And generally speaking, and the most basic way, if we can do that for somebody, then I think this will be worth it.
Yeah, totally.
Well, we appreciate you listening to the Mosaic Life podcast.
If you're driving. When you stop your car, go ahead and pull out Instagram and follow us. If you have thoughts about something we said, in fact, last week's conversation, we had some feedback about what was good, what was bad, and things that could have been different. Like with the feedback sandwich part, maybe it not being the most useful way to give honest feedback. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
So somebody gave us that feedback and it helped us grow. So also, if you hear something that could help us or something that helped you, shoot us an email. What's the email again?
It's onemosaiclife@gmail.com, and that is all spelled out. And then, of course, on Instagram, we are One Mosaic Life. Feel free to subscribe or like or comment or whatever the hell people do on social media. And I want to drive home the last points that Ernie made. I have to imagine that as we continue to grow, we will have a lot of parents out there, and it's you're not only at that point responsible for yourself and for your significant other, but for your children as well. And so I can't imagine that responsibility of maintaining a sense of, I don't know if level-headedness is the right word, but
Totally.
But yes, and so making sure that you are being fair to not only yourself, not only your spouse, but your kids as well. So if you have any stories or if you have any advice or anything you would like to share in that regard, again, we are not the experts. We are the ones on this journey together, and we want to hear what yours has been like. So please share that with us.
Yeah. This is a cooperative effort.
It is.
Absolutely. It's growing. We're growing. And your support will help us better support you and other people.
It absolutely will. You can visit our website at onemosaic.life. Again, that is onemosaic.life. And you can find us wherever podcasts are available. And last but not least, if you have the ambition to do so, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That helps others like you find us. And we would love to be able to share a piece of us with everybody. So until the next time, Ernie, thank you for doing this with me, my friend.
Yeah, this one felt great, and they're only getting better.
They are.
Thank you.
We'll see you next time.